Welcome to Own It, the podcast where we talk to real estate thought leaders about embracing your strengths, taking your career to new heights, and owning your future.
I'm Hillary Saunders, Chief Broker Officer and co-founder at Side, joined by my marvelous co-host, Mr. Spencer Kroll.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm working on a magic trick to be marvelous, just so you know.
Oh, or the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Could you do that?
You're pushing the envelope here a little bit.
Okay, fair enough. But today it's all about marketing, all things social marketing, AI, ChatGPT, all the buzzwords, with one of my most favorite people that I like to follow on social media, who is not only an author, she has her own podcast. She's the founder of Get Social Smart Academy. She is the founder of Katie Lance Consulting. She is Katie Lance herself. Welcome to Own It, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate you inviting me on.
I'm thrilled. Spencer is jumping for joy.
I'm very excited. I've seen you speak several times, so I'm excited to actually talk to you two on one. I don't know, one-on-one, two-on-one, whatever. We're ganging up on you, Katie, and I'm really happy to be here to talk to you today.
Thank you.
No, this is so exciting and so topic of everybody's conversation at all the realtor conventions, at NAR, all the coaching platforms. It's all about marketing and the new tools and technologies. And I know you have spent a lot of time, not just during doing the research, writing best practices, but you teach and consult and coach on this. So this is going to be a wonderful jam-packed podcast. So how did you get into coaching, consulting, educating in the real estate space to start with?
I've always loved marketing. I think I've just always been one of those people or kids growing up who just was really fascinated with business. I come from kind of a long line of entrepreneurship and people in sales. And I've always just sort of loved that aspect. And, over the years have done a number of different things. As far as real estate, I got into the real estate world probably, 15, 18 years ago. I'm probably dating myself. I had a lot of marketing experience and then started working for a local boutique real estate brokerage in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live. And that was really my first foray into marketing for real estate and what that looked like from an agent perspective, what that looked like from a brokerage perspective. And I learned very quickly how hard agents and brokers work day in and day out. I literally had no idea. It was such an amazing experience. And from there, I went to work for Inman News for many years. I was their social media director and then chief strategist for a number of years. And then I got the entrepreneurial bug myself. And almost 11 years ago, it'll be 11 years in October, I decided to go out on my own. And my husband and I launched Katie Lance Consulting. And really, we have a passion for helping agents and brokers get smarter about social media. That's really our passion. We really feel like when it comes to social media and tools, like you mentioned, AI, ChatGPT, video marketing, I don't think as an agent, they have to be everywhere. I don't think you have to be on 27 different platforms, but I think, picking a few that make the most sense and helping agents and brokers just take back their time and be more effective is really what motivates us. So it's been a fun ride and we're just getting started.
I'm curious, the landscape has changed a lot in the past 11 years. What were the platforms 11 years ago? And are there any rules which you had 11 years ago that you no longer are using today?
Yeah, things have definitely changed. And I always joke, being in the business of social media, I think it's really good for job security because it changes all the time. So as soon as you get really comfortable figuring something out, something changes. But I would say, 10, 11 years ago, blogging was a huge conversation. We had a lot of folks who were blogging on Active Rain and then starting their own WordPress blogs. And blogging, I think, is still a really valuable thing to have. A lot of agents I know still love to write. It's not necessarily for everyone, but I've really seen is kind of a transition from a ton of the written word to more people getting on camera and sharing their expertise in terms of video, whether it's YouTube content. Now we're seeing a lot of short form content like TikTok, Instagram Reels, short form Facebook content. So things have certainly changed, I think, as far as the content landscape. It's always been, though, important for an agent or broker to put their own opinion out there, to put their own voice out there, to not, put the same canned content everywhere, to try to stand out in a sea of sameness, so to speak. So the platforms have changed, but I think that there's certain things that are the same, the content part of it. And then secondly, the relationship building piece of it. Real estate has always been and will continue to be regardless of tech, regardless of ChatGPT, it will continue to be a relationship business. And when done right, the agents and brokers that we see that are getting a lot of business from content and social media, they're putting out unique content, but they're also being intentional and they're connecting with their clients, their prospects, and building those relationships.
When you said, provide your own kind of thought leadership on something and giving your own spin, do you find it more beneficial if an agent or brokerage uses nationally provided stats or statewide provided stats, or coming up with their own hyper local spin on things? What's better for the audience?
I think ideally both are great. So if you are looking at national stats, like if you're pulling stats from the National Association of Realtors or even statewide, obviously, for example, I'm in the state of California. The market here in the Bay Area is drastically different between here and say Bakersfield or San Diego or Redding or different parts of the state. And real estate, of course, is a very local business. So I think both are really valuable. If you can pull national statistics, what you can then do is tell the story of what's happening nationally and what does that mean locally. And right now, especially in the news, there's a lot of information about the economy and the market and what's happening. And honestly, there's a lot of fear out there. And so this is a great opportunity to say, hey, here's what's happening nationally, but this is what we're seeing locally. And then to your second point of bringing in local stats, if you can then bring in some of those local stats and go, here's the similarities that we see that are happening nationally, and here's, the differences. So I honestly think both are great, and they can be part of one conversation. If we're talking about video content, it could be all one piece of, one great meaty video. It could also be a few pieces of content, almost a series, if you will, where you put out something once a month or once a quarter, giving that perspective. Because people are reading the news, they're watching things on their social media feeds. And if you can be the person that says, this is what these numbers mean, that's so valuable.
Now, a lot of times, though, people don't have an expertise or don't know how to communicate something like that, because that could be a really complex thing. So how do you have an agent stay in their lane, or what do you recommend for somebody to do if that's, if they feel it's important to communicate that, or should some people just not communicate it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think everyone has a different level of comfort in terms of explaining complex situations, especially numbers. And for a lot of people, numbers can be really daunting. A lot of people, kind of glaze over when they see a bunch of numbers or a bunch of charts. And ironically, this is actually one area where we see ChatGPT really coming into play for a lot of agents and brokers. So as you know, ChatGPT came on the scene back in November of 2022. And one of the things we're seeing a lot of agents do, especially those we work with inside of our Get Social Smart Academy, is they will open up ChatGPT and they'll say something like, I'm a real estate agent in this city, this area. Here are some specific stats about the market. Can you take this and write this in an easy to read format? Can you write this in a conversational format that I could post to social media? Or could you create a simple video script that I could read for a video? And so I always say, don't just copy and paste from ChatGPT, but that's going to get you maybe 80% of the way there. You can see the output, see what it's created, and then look at it and adjust it a little bit based on your personality. But I think that's going to help a lot. And we've seen agents do a really great job doing that. And you can even then go into Canva, take some of that content and create some graphics if you want to create maybe a little infographic or something that supports what you're talking about as well.
How does an agent figure out what's actually being received best by the audience, right? There's, like you mentioned, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. That's still a lot of different platforms. What is your guidance on figuring out which platform is best suited for you specifically or your audience?
So I think for an agent, there are obviously lots of platforms, right? If we look at the landscape right now in 2023, there's Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, there's YouTube, there's Pinterest, there's a plethora of platforms. There's an alliteration right there, a plethora of platforms. And so what I recommend are really two things. Number one, I think an agent needs to think about where do they like to be, right? And if an agent has not yet explored some of the different platforms, I would encourage you, download TikTok, download Instagram. You don't necessarily have to use it right away, but and this may sound a little weird, but be a little bit of a lurker. See what other agents are doing in different market areas. If you're an agent in Florida, see what agents are doing in New York or California or the Midwest. And feel free to lurk on my account. See some of the things that we're doing or that Side's doing. And when part of deciding where you want to be is sort of looking at those different platforms and sensing the vibe, right? And every platform has a little bit of a different vibe. It's like going into a restaurant and you just have a certain vibe. You know, there's certain places where you're like, I like this vibe. And other places you're like, I'm good. I've been there once. I don't need to go again. So that's honestly part of it. And the second thing, once you've done that and taken a little bit of time to kind of explore the different platforms, do a little bit of lurking, seeing what's happening, is number two, really look to see where your clients are and your prospects. And when you do that, I'm going to challenge you to not assume, because oftentimes we assume. I hear this all the time. Oh, my clients are on social media. Oh, they're not here or they're not there. One thing that anyone can do who's listening is I would encourage you, if you have an email database, send an email to your database. And you could say something like, we are working on serving you better with what we put out on social media. And we would love to know, where are you spending time? We're looking on, looking for ways to serve you better on social media, not follow me, but we're looking for ways to serve you better. Where are you spending time? Is it Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube? None of the above? Please let us know. And you'll get responses. You'll have some people that are like, no, I'm not on there at all. And that's all good. Now you know where to connect with them, right? And other people will tell you. And so you really kind of doing a little bit of that homework and deciding where folks are, I think it's just, again, a small thing that makes a big difference. And then over the course of time, keeping an eye on your analytics. Most of these platforms have free analytics, so you can see what type of engagement you're getting, what types of views. Just remember that some of those metrics don't always equal business. They're not necessarily the quote unquote best metrics to follow, but they can give you a gauge of like, where are you getting some engagement? Where are people attracted to your content? And then you can make those adjustments from there.
Question for you. Let's just say that I'm heading a team and I'm not an Instagram guy or I'm not a TikTok person, but someone else on my team is. Are you having people doing collaborative sorts of things where they are the TikTok representative for this team and other people are, whatever, Facebook or whatever it might be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this all the time, especially with real estate teams. I find that the beauty of a team, and a team's not for everyone, but the folks who really gravitate and who thrive in a team environment, the beauty of a team is everyone brings a different skill set to the table, right? Mm-hmm. And so if there is someone on the team who's like, yeah, I'm totally into creating content on TikTok, or gosh, I love doing YouTube stuff, or hey, I want to write. I would love to, do some, writing for blog posts or articles, mm-hmm. to submit, content to the media. Everyone sort of has their different skill sets. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, I would say embrace it, and give that person, full reign to say, hey, let's do it. And don't be afraid to try some things out. I think we are the type of people in general where we want results quickly, and marketing, any kind of marketing, takes time. They always say consistency is the name of the game, which is absolutely true. So you can't just do a couple videos and go, well, gosh, no one watched it. You got to be willing to try a few things and try different things out to see what sticks.
I think that's an important point, is longevity, right? You can't just assume that your first video is going to be the end all be all and everyone's going to flock to you. How do you, or what's your opinion on mixing personal life, right? Your dog, your kids, what you eat for dinner, with the business of showing houses, real estate, what's the market doing? Because I'm curious to get your take on the authentic self and how that comes into play.
Yeah, I love that you asked that. I think that's more important than ever before, honestly. And I think people have sometimes a little bit of a misconception about authenticity. They think they have to share everything. They have to, they think they have to share like every moment of what their kids did, or just, every private moment. And being personal is not the same as sharing every private moment. You can be personal and share interests without feeling like you're invading your privacy, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think that we are in an area right now, a time right now, where authenticity is more important than ever before. And it's important because there's a ton of noise on social media. If you were to go on any platform right now, there is a ton of people talking and chatting and trying to chat over each other. And so being able to show up and share not just that, hey, I'm a realtor and I'm successful, that's an important part of your business. There's nothing wrong with sharing your successes and sharing pictures of you and your clients and celebrating your wins and sharing testimonials. But if that's all you're sharing, that's first of all, that's only a sliver of your life. And that's just a sliver of who you are. So incorporating things that you're passionate about, whether it might be a beautiful sunset or you love to take a walk every morning. For me, I love coffee. So part of what I do, what I've kind of become known for on my Instagram stories, every morning I share a cup of my picture of my coffee that day, because I've got this kind of crazy coffee mug collection, which that's a whole nother story. But sharing just little moments of what you do, it really leads to the know, like, and trust factor, as we've all heard over the years. And I would take that a step further and say we do business with people we know, like, and trust and relate to. Right. And what that means is you may not be everyone's cup of tea, and it's all good. There's enough business for all of us. Right. I had someone inside of our academy recently say, she said, Katie, I may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's shot of tequila.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which is quite an authentic statement. I mean, that's a position of branding in a sense there too. I mean, that's a great T-shirt, for their.
I'm writing that down right now.
Yeah, but this brings me to something else, and I do want to go back to coffee with you because I'm also a big coffee guy. But with regard to authenticity, though, how do you turn that into business, right? So I could show you that I drink coffee every morning, and so that's great. But so what else do people have to do to show that they're in the business?
Okay, so I love that you asked that, because that's the question a lot of people don't ask me. So I love that you asked that, because you can't just show up and go, hey, here's my dog, here's my cat, here's my kids. Like, it's like, so what? That's great. Right. So I think there's two parts of it. First of all, showing up authentically also means you need to take time to dig into your feeds and like and comment and give back and be a noticer. I have two boys who are 13 and 16. I'm like hesitating saying this because I can't believe they're teenagers now, and I always tell them, be a noticer in the world. Notice what's happening around you. And I will tell agents the same thing on social media. Be a noticer. If you can take 5 or 10 minutes a day, I've been doing this for years. I do what's called Focus 5. I take 5 minutes, I scroll through my feed, and I intentionally comment on at least 5 things a day. And by intentionally comment, I'm not just like, great job, congrats. I will leave a meaningful comment. Something like, hey, congrats, Hillary, I'm so happy for you. Or happy birthday, Mike. Like, do you have anything fun planned for today? Like, I'm going to use your name. I might ask a question. I'm going to leave something meaningful. It's such a small, tiny thing, but it's a small, tiny thing that not a lot of people think is important. They will often outsource it to somebody else. And I can tell you from experience, like, that's how business happens, because business is all about relationships and people noticing. Like, when someone posts something to Facebook, it's because it's important to them. And if you can be a noticer on that, oh my gosh, that small little thing over the course of time pays off. The second thing I'm going to say is, when you do post things periodically, especially in stories, I love posting some sort of personal things in my Instagram stories, which is ideal for sort of that behind the scenes look. What happens is, when you share things, like, for example, we just got a new cat and I'm sharing sort of the trials of having a new cat with an older cat. People are messaging me and they're like, oh my gosh, I mean, they're giving me tips, right? And now we're having a conversation in the DMs, and it's not just about cats, it's about other things too, right? When you can take a conversation from something that's happening publicly to now you're in my DMs and we're having conversations back and forth, now I'm top of mind, because now they say, oh gosh, Katie's got a training coming up. Oh gosh, Katie's got this coming up. And now I'm like more top of mind to them. I pop up in their feed more often because we've been talking about coffee, or we've been talking about my kids, right? So that's the second part of that, is it's those type of personal things lead to conversations, right? They lead to a reaction from someone, and that can absolutely lead to business. But like Hillary said, you've got to be patient. You've got to be in it for the long haul. I cannot tell you how many people reach out to me who are now ready to work with me in 2023. And I'm like, hey, when did we first meet? And they're like, oh my gosh, 5 years ago, blah, 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 blah. 6 years ago, blah, 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 blah. Or sometimes it's 3 months ago, but you've got to be patient. So
yeah, so I want to follow up on that though, right? So then so your business is slightly different than a real estate agent's business. So then a real estate agent has to know, like, when is the right time for the ask, right? So so like, if I could go back in time, I would put this on my YouTube stuff, right? When is the right time for the ask? How do you introduce? So by the way, I can help you sell your home. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that's really clunky.
I don't think you have to actually ask, to be honest with you, because so where I think there's a big opportunity for agents and brokers with their content is if you can be someone who on a regular basis puts out helpful, informative content about the market, about real estate, about remodeling, whatever it might be, about your community. What will happen over the course of time is you will start to attract people you'll start to get DMs. You'll start to get messages from people who are like, oh my gosh, Spencer, I see you everywhere. I feel like I know you. I feel like you're in my head. And when those people are ready to work with you, they reach out. They're going to reach out to you. And in their mind, there's nobody else. Who else would they contact? Of course, they're going to contact you because they've been seeing you in their feeds for the past 3 years, every Monday with your Monday market update, or every Tuesday with your Tip Tuesday video, or every Friday when you feature a small business. They've seen you. And so there's nothing wrong with asking from time to time. Don't get me wrong. Occasionally, I will say, hey, by the way, if you are curious on how to work with me, this is how you can do it. And if you're interested, send me a DM, of course. But you don't have to do it as much, because when you're out there consistently showing who you are, showing your value, you attract people, you attract business. That's a huge difference between attracting business and chasing leads. It's an awesome way of doing business.
I think this episode is one that not just myself, but many people will listen to a few times over, because there's so many gold nuggets that you're dropping. I want to keep that going and ask, what do you say to an agent who thinks they don't belong on social, or I don't want to say I don't want to put words in their mouth and say they're too good for social, but social isn't their thing, right? They just don't belong there.
Yeah. So I would probably question that a little bit and just kind of dig into why. And usually when someone says they're not into social or they're not a social person, there's usually a few reasons. Perhaps they are very private and they're nervous about privacy and maybe data security. And that is completely understandable. And it's such a personal choice. And I would never force someone to say, you have to do this. Just like I would never say, you have to run a newspaper ad or you're going to go out of business. Right. So I think you have to make a choice based on your personality. But I also think that there's nothing wrong with trying. I find that a lot of folks will say, I'm not good at this. Like I prefer talking to people in real life, or I prefer, talking to people belly to belly. And I will push back on that a little bit and say, just because you're not talking face to face doesn't mean this over Zoom or this over Facebook or this over Instagram isn't real. And sometimes they don't quite understand it because they haven't experienced it yet. Right. So I will often say, you know what, I'm going to challenge you. Let's try a couple things, right? Let's try spending a few days, a few weeks, whatever you're comfortable doing, just spending some time on social media. Let's not even post, but I'm going to challenge you, spend 10 or 15 minutes a day engaging with your friends, your colleagues, people you've connected to over the years. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in a month. Right. And sometimes we start there. And again, it could be a fit. It could be not a fit. But you just like social media, you don't have to be everywhere. You don't necessarily have to do anything. I'm sorry, you don't have to be everywhere, right? So it doesn't mean you don't necessarily have to do that one thing. You got to pick what you feel is best for you.
What are mistakes that agents are making?
So the biggest mistakes I see agents making are really either, number one, I would say set it and forget it, where they sort of like set it up and haven't done a whole lot with it since, where they're like, maybe there's a lot of platforms out there where you can kind of automate content. You hit a button and everything gets automated, which sounds great. It's like, ooh, that sounds great. But it's almost like, like the lights are on, but nobody's home. Right. So we don't want to automate things. There's nothing wrong with scheduling content. There's some great free tools like Meta Business Suite. You can schedule your content for free. There's some other great tools out there that I've used over the years, like Hootsuite or Later.com. You can do some Canva. I'm not affiliated with any of these tools. I've just used them over the years. And you can certainly schedule some of your content. So we don't want to automate content. That's a big mistake. I think the other mistake too is just posting promotional content. Instagram is a great example, and Facebook. A lot of times I'll have an agent come up to me and they'll say, can you look at my Facebook page? Can you look at my Instagram account? What do you think? And all I see is like, just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold, or open houses. And usually what's missing is them, right? And so I'll often say, like, I would love to hear from you. What do you sound like? What are you all about? What is your opinion? You can share a listing, of course, but how about instead of just a pretty picture, why not you take your camera out, do a 15-second little panning of the beautiful kitchen or the beautiful view. You don't even have to be on camera if you don't want to. You can add some great music, and now you've got something great about your listing. But yes, getting on camera, I think, is important as well. And a lot of folks, we don't like how we look, or we don't like how we sound, and we don't know how to do it, so then we don't do it. But again, nowadays it's so important to put your voice out there. I often joke with people, it's not like there's a camera crew following you around. It's not like you've got the greatest light in the filter. Like you are who you are, right?
Yeah.
So share your expertise. And, like I said, don't just set it and forget it. And, obviously show up and put your own voice out there. So important.
Katie, when you decided to go on your own, did you have any limiting beliefs or thoughts that you couldn't do it, or fears or trepidations, or were you always gung-ho, I can conquer the world?
Well, I'd love to say I had no fear, but yeah, I definitely had some fear and trepidation. I think that which I would imagine a lot of people sort of have that imposter syndrome of like, oh, who am I to do this? And I know I felt that way when I was writing my book. I'm like, who am I to do this? And I think you have to get to a point. I finally got to the point where I was like, well, who am I not to do this? Right. And I may be teaching social media and there's thousands of people out there, but you know what? I have a unique perspective. And again, I may not be everyone's cup of tea. Hopefully I'm somebody's shot of tequila, but I think that normal fear a little bit is normal. And I think it's good. I think sometimes we stay in our little comfort zones and we do what's working, but you know what? We only have one life to lead. And not to get morbid, but it's like life is short. Why not? Why not take a chance? Why not put yourself out there? Why not try something different? If it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, if you're going outside your comfort zone, like that's a good thing.
Yeah. The thing which I think is interesting, where you were talking, going back earlier about, not where people set it and forget it, on there. I think it's a big commitment with social media, right? So you had to commit basically to your business, right? So you had no choice. You left what you were doing and I'm going to do this business, and you had to do it. And what were some ways that you may have failed yourself to start, or what were some things that you started that just you realized, oh, that's not working out?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to say, I know failures, right? But I think we've all learned the other way. We've all had, missteps and whatnot. I do have to say, I just very grateful. I think I was very lucky to have a really great transition. I was working for Inman News at the time, and then Inman became one of my first clients right out of the gate. So I really believe that it's a small world. Don't burn any bridges, And I have a great relationship with Inman. I feel very fortunate. I speak at many of their events, and which is really an honor. So, and I think one of the things I did right was really try to honor that time that I was with them, and then at the same time in my evenings and weekends and early mornings, put in the time and effort to prepare for what that would look like. Because at the time I had two little kids. We still have a mortgage. There was no time to go on vacation for 2 weeks or anything. So I think as far as what I, did wrong or maybe mistakes, I think I had a little bit of blind faith, which was probably good. When I first launched my business, I didn't even have a website. I had a Facebook page. Wow. I was on Facebook. I was on Instagram. And it wasn't until probably a year later, to be honest with you, that I got a website. So probably would have had a website to go, right out of the gate. And what I really learned too is not just having a website, because everyone says a website's like a business card, but where I missed out, but I feel like, we've been catching up these 9 years, is in using a website to build your email list and build your email database. And I'll never forget one of the first web designers we worked with for our first website back in the day. He said, what's your goal for the website? And we were talking about a few things, and he said, don't forget about using it to really build your database. And it was just such a reminder to me. And I've continued to hold that near and dear to me, because as much as I love social media, I'm in the business of social media. Social media is rented ground. We do not own it. We are not promised anything. These are free platforms for us. So it is equally as important to continue to not buy a list, not spam people, but to authentically build your email list. And wish I started it sooner, but we've been doing it strong.
Yeah, you seem to be doing okay. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. So
aside from your kids, your cat, and your husband, where do you find your inspiration?
Oh gosh, from a lot of things. I mean, faith is really important to me, and so that's a big part of our life. We love to travel. That's always fun. One of the things that we do each and every year, and we've been doing this for years, as we look at our calendar for the year ahead. Before we plan anything business related, before I do my business goals, we always plan for when we're taking time off. You know, when is our family time? When is our vacation time? If I'm doing a girls trip or whatever it might be, I find that if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. And so, and also that means taking off specific days. Like I don't work my birthday. I don't work my kids' birthdays. There's certain things that happen during the year. And I've just learned for quality of life and sustainability, that's so important to me. And I think for agents, so many agents work a million, 24 hours, 24/7, and having some boundaries, it's okay. And what that means is sometimes we lose business, and that's okay. Like there's a give and take, right? So I think that's important, having some boundaries in that regard. I also love to read. I love to listen to podcasts.
Give us a couple books you're reading right now, or a couple podcasts that you like.
Sure. Well, I would love to say I'm reading all these like great business books, but sometimes it's kind of fun just to listen to stuff that is not business related. So I am a huge fan of the show Friends from back in the day. So I recently just finished Matthew Perry's autobiography, which was amazing. And I'm reading another book by someone who did kind of a deep dive into what the show Friends is all about. And so that's just fun. That's just, fun and lighthearted for me. And as far as podcasts, we kind of joked yesterday about true crime podcasts. I love a good true crime podcast. It's especially if you're going on a walk, just something nice to listen to, a little bit outside of business, outside of marketing.
So a question for you though. All right. So you do your coffee in the morning and whatever. Did you post anything about reading the Friends book? Was that part of you? Was that part of your authentic Katie? Did you put that on?
I probably have. Yeah. We actually, you know what? I have posted it recently because we have a great fire pit we treated ourselves to in our backyard. And that's kind of my little space. I love to go out there at night and read, especially as it's the air is getting, chillier here in the Bay Area. So, that's kind of my reading spot. And sometimes it's not with a cup of coffee. Sometimes it's with a glass of wine. So
But that sounds very balanced. And actually, after this podcast recording, I think I'm going to go listen to a true crime podcast and walk the dog. So you've inspired me today as well. Thank you.
Good.
One other thing, kind of in your mission statement or whatever, when you're helping agents, it says that you do it, that they can do a social media and how they can do it without spending a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. So that, please give wisdom on this, because that's one thing I don't have a lot of.
Yes, I am so passionate about this subject, so I appreciate you asking me. I kind of alluded to it a second ago when I talk about time and your calendar and blocking off things that are important to you. And so, if you look at any successful agent, a lot of successful agents are really good at time blocking. And it might be in their personal life, but it also might be in when they're going to write thank you notes, when they're going to make calls, when they're going to the office. But oftentimes what's not on the schedule is the social media part, is the content part. Like that, I feel like for a lot of agents, it's like, well, when I have time, I'll do that. The problem with that is, real estate's like this roller coaster. It's like, I'm busy. I have 3 new listings. I have nothing going on. I'm really busy. I have nothing going on. And so what I recommend for agents is get it on their calendar. And there's basically 3 areas I'd recommend. So on a daily basis, set aside 10 or 15 minutes a day to do the Focus 5 that I talked about earlier. Where you take 10 or 15 minutes, drinking your cup of coffee or your tea. Maybe it's in the evening, whatever. It doesn't matter. Take 10 or 15 minutes a day, scroll through your feeds, be intentional, like, comment, interact. Don't be a drive-by liker, but take a few minutes to connect. Like, be really intentional connecting at least 10 or 15 minutes a day. Put it on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, again, it probably won't happen. It doesn't have to be 7 days a week. Maybe it's 4 or 5 days out of the week. So that's one. The second thing is I would say schedule 30 to 60 minutes once a week where you're going to schedule some of your content. You're going to look ahead. Now, for me, I do this on Fridays. I've been doing this for over 10 years. Every Friday, I set aside a half an hour and I look ahead. What's coming up in the week or so ahead? And I will schedule a couple things. So as an agent, if you've got a new listing or you want to put out a new tip on Tuesday or Thursday, you want to do Throwback Thursday, schedule a couple of those. And again, Meta Business Suite, free, easy to use. There's other tools out there that will do that. Sure. And then the third part of this is putting time on your schedule monthly. So we've got daily, weekly, and then monthly. I would recommend give yourself an appointment, a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours once a month. And this is where you're going to batch create a lot of content. And this is the kind of appointment that I've been batching content for years. And the idea of batching content is you're going to record more than one thing, right? I started doing this because selfishly, I was like, if I'm going to do my hair and makeup and make one video, you better believe I'm going to make 5, right? And, it's just like anything else. My husband does meal prep. It's kind of that same idea. If you batch anything, you might, sit down and write 10 thank you notes, not just one. It's that same idea. So you're going to record 4 or 5 or however many pieces of content all in one sitting. You're not going to post it right away. That's why you've got it scheduled to do once a week, but you've got a bunch in the can. And, for me, I typically around the middle of the month, I'm thinking ahead. So I'm looking at the calendar. It's almost as we are recording this live, we're kind of in the middle of September. And the next couple of days, I'm going to record all my October content. So it's in the can. Now, once you record it, if you want to edit it, that's fine. If you we do work with an editor for some of our content. So I'll send it to her. She'll do some editing. If you want to do some editing yourself, you might also set aside a little bit extra time to do that editing, because sometimes that can take a little bit of time, but don't let that hold you back. I always say done is better than perfect, right? We don't have to be, Scorsese, just get it out there is the key. So, but to your point there, Spencer, of get on your calendar daily, weekly, and monthly. And what that means is, so let's say you have an appointment on your calendar for tomorrow from 10 to 2 to record content. And someone calls you and says, can I see a house tomorrow at 10:30? You say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm not available at 10:30, but I could see you tomorrow at 2:30, or how about later at 3? Which works better for you? Right? And so you treat it as an appointment, just like anything else. Sure. So why? Because it's a lead generator, and because the leads you get from this content are so much better. Because again, like we talked about, it's that idea of attracting business versus chasing leads.
I think that there's so many takeaways in this episode. I'm going to put it on repeat and just like osmosis as well. I'm going to sleep with it going, so that way it just ingrains in my head. But in all seriousness, Katie, you have so many amazing practical ways that not just realtors, but anyone who's in business at all can really utilize these tools to better their business, to gain clients. The calendaring one, the focus 5, be a noticer. I've got pages and lines of notes. This is wonderful. You are a wonderful speaker, and I'm so thankful that we got to get into your busy schedule and get some time with you on the books. Katie Lance Consulting is your website, correct?
Yes, just katielance.com. That's the easiest way to find me. It's just KATIELANCE.com. And you can connect with me through all the socials. Anywhere,
just not MySpace. Just not MySpace.
Not MySpace. You can always email us directly to it, ownit@side.com, and we'll get your message to Katie. But there's so many takeaways. I can't even pick one. Spencer, do you have one?
Yeah, that she has a coffee cup collection, which I want to compare with you. Yeah, I think the focus 5 is probably the big one. Just the other thing, just about the one about not having to ask, but just being there, and then people will ask you. I think is probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
It is really, it's such a different way of doing business. For most agents, they get a lot of their business from referrals and past clients, which is great. But even with a referral, you still have to sell yourself, because they don't know you. They know you're their friend, they know their cousin, they know their sister, but they don't know you. And the difference and that's still a great lead, but this type of lead, they know you. They've literally been watching you. They have binge watched all your YouTube content, and they are literally the best lead. And then at that point, it's up to you if you want to work with them, right? And sometimes it's not a good fit. You might go, you know what? Oh my gosh, thank you so much, but let me introduce you to so-and-so, because I think they would actually be able to serve you better in our office. And it's just such a different dynamic. It's awesome.
That's wonderful. And we'll have a link to your book as well on our website. And, this has been a very, very insightful podcast episode. So thank you very much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. I'm such a big fan of Side and everything you guys are doing. It is really an honor to be here. You guys are really raising the bar in so many areas of this industry, and it's just so fun to chat. And for anyone listening, I'm happy to chat. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Again, just Katie@katielance.com. You can message me on social media. We'd love to connect.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all on another episode of Own It.